features of Microsoft Teams if you haven't used it, and everybody will get a notification once the recording starts out there, and you probably see it at the top there. So all you, Andres.
Absolutely. And maybe Michael, I forgot to mention this to you last night again. If you wanted to put just like a quick little small poll, just kind of demo it later during the day today,
Yep.
I think that'd be a cool thing to do.
I'll put that together.
Okay. So it looks like, we've all been able to sign into this environment. Phenomenal. This is great. Really, again, what we're trying to do here today is give you an understanding of what is possible with Microsoft Teams. What can you do with this application? How does this really integrate with the other applications here inside of this Office 365 or Microsoft 365 suite? If you signed into the, this account that I mentioned here, you should be logged into this office.com where you can see your entire suite of tools right here on the left-hand side. And so the idea here is I'm going to go ahead and walk you through what's possible in Teams, and I can also touch on some other things here inside of the suite as well. So if you're here, go ahead and click on this purple icon. It should say Teams, okay? And then you go ahead and select it. What you'll notice is that it's going to open up a new tab that's actually going to give you the online version of Microsoft Teams. It may ask you to get the Windows app. Don't click that button. Just go ahead and go straight to the website because we're going to want to be working here inside of this actual piece. Okay, so you notice this is just a demo environment that we spun up here on our end that we use for any kind of trainings where we need them. One of the first things that I will mention about Teams and why I personally really enjoy the product is just the flexibility aspect to it. You'll notice here we actually logged in through office.com. This is completely online. So this is the online version of Teams that we're actually looking at today. But, assuming you guys have used Teams before, you understand there's a desktop app as well. And there's also going to be the app that you can use on your actual smartphone. And so really, what it's giving you the ability to do is to take your business anywhere you are going. If you're on the go, you're on some type of trip, you can just quickly open up your phone and do your work from there. If you have access to Wi-Fi, you're going to be able to do it from your computer and your laptop. Anywhere you pretty much have access to internet, you're going to be able to access Microsoft Teams. And that's one of the first things I just like to highlight because for a lot of us, that can really be a game changer in terms of how we do business. But with that being said, like I mentioned, let me actually mention this. This is meant to be a hands-on lab, meaning I'm going to be walking through a lot of these different steps. I'm going to be showing my screen. I'm going to be describing the different capabilities of Teams. And so if you ever have any questions, you ever have any issues with what's going on and during the actual training today, something doesn't make sense, something's confusing, by all means, please let me know. Variety of ways to get a hold of me. You can go ahead and use this raise your hand feature. You can put something in the chat window.
To something else that he's talking about.
Sorry, go ahead.
That sounds like Elvira didn't realize she wasn't on mute.
Okay, no worries. Don't worry about it. Okay, so, one of the things that you can do here during this lab is it's meant to be, a safe space, meaning if you have any types of questions, please, by all means, we want to make sure you get something out of here, you learn, and this is an impactful session for you. Steve. Let me check to see if Steve's on mute. Steve, you're on mute, my friend, in case you're speaking.
Okay. How did you get to that again?
This page. Yeah, no worries. So you remember you logged in here to office.com. Do you see this page that says good morning?
Yeah.
Okay. So here on this same page on the left-hand side, you should see a list of all the applications inside of Office 365. Do you see this purple icon that looks like two people with a T? This is what you select and it'll open up Teams here in the browser.
All right. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting.
Oh, not at all, Steve. This is what it's all about. So I appreciate you asking. Not a problem. Okay, so we're here inside of Teams. What I'm going to go through is just a quick little explanation of, all the buttons and where they're located. And then I'm going to go into this left-hand side we call the command bar, go through each of these different functions, how you can use them here on Teams and what they mean for you as a business. Okay. So let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and zoom so it's easier to see. First thing I wanted to just quickly show you is where you can actually see, what your account is here inside of Teams. So if you click on this little circle with the letter in it, normally, right, this would have a picture. It would have a picture of Paul or whoever you are in this specific case. You'd be able to change the picture here if you wanted to. You can manage all those settings. The reason I wanted to go ahead and just quickly show this is because one of the most important pieces, in my personal opinion, to this application is this availability sensor, right? The ability to go ahead and see, is someone from my team currently on Teams, and can I go ahead and reach out to them and ask them for help, ask them to work with me, ask them to collaborate for whatever reason. You'll notice there is an available function, meaning you're on the application and you're not inside of a meeting. You have busy or do not disturb, which means you're on Teams, but you're inside of a meeting. Or maybe you are just completely off of the application and you'll go ahead and have this be right back or appear away. As all of us are, continuing this remote work lifestyle, I think this is one of the most important pieces that we can really use inside of Teams to understand who's available, who we can collaborate with, and who's going to be, somebody that we can reach out to and get an answer from. And then, one of the other things I wanted to just quickly show you was this settings section. Okay, you notice there's this gear icon as well towards the bottom or the middle. Not going to spend too much time here. The reason I just wanted to quickly show you this is that if you wanted to manage your personal settings inside of your Teams environment, your general settings, your privacy settings, how you manage your notifications, how you manage the way that you receive calls, right? These are all things that you're going to be able to quickly, change yourself inside of your own application. Not going to spend too much time going through all of these. I just wanted to show you if you wanted to make those changes, this is where they would be. However, the caveat to that is, if you're looking to make organizational-wide changes, for example, the ability to be able to communicate and collaborate with people outside of your organization, you're going to have to go ahead and turn that on the back end through what's called the Teams Admin Center. Okay, so again, this is your own personal settings. This is not company-wide settings. I just wanted to, differentiate between the two. Okay, so now that we've shown that, the other thing I want to quickly show you is the ability of this search bar. I think most people don't necessarily really understand everything that's possible through, Teams. But the reason I wanted to just quickly show you this is because Teams is meant to be your digital workspace. Okay, so what I mean by that is you're supposed to be able to do the majority of your work, the majority of the things that you need to accomplish your goals every day through this one application. And so what ultimately comes with that and what naturally comes out of that is the ability for you to find a lot of different things inside of Teams, right? Teams is going to be housing a lot of the information that you're using both when you're communicating through chat, for example, as well as how you're actually going ahead and storing files, storing information inside of the application as well. And so if for whatever reason you can't seem to find something, you can't go ahead and find a specific file that you have inside of Teams, that's not necessarily going to be the most effective way to search for it, is just trying to find it over and over again. Let's just go ahead and search for it, make our lives easier, and see if that's the easiest way to do it. So I can go ahead and search for something. I encourage you, go ahead and search for something yourself. I will say though, this is not our own version of Teams, meaning this is just a demo environment, so it's not going to have a lot of information living inside of the application currently. However, I can show you, just to kind of give you an example, if I'm here inside of the team and I want to look at the marketing team, for example, see if I have any files, right? So if I have any files here, okay, so let me say the general, I think IT has some files here. So if you're here inside of, okay, let's look at the accounting team. I just want to show you, if we're looking for a specific file that we're trying to find, okay, and let's say there's a file that we've been collaborating on here as a team. Let's look at collaboration documents. We're going to be able to find that document by searching for it. So if I look, for example, for marketing, right, the key here is that whether or not you actually have something with marketing, it's how it's actually searching for it. That's what I wanted to show you. Anytime you're talking about it in your messages, you're going to quickly be able to see that pop up here inside of your messages. If you have anything that has to do with marketing, you're going to be able to select it. It's going to direct you to exactly where that's living inside of the Teams environment. If you have any people inside of your organization who are marketing focused personnel, their job is in marketing, you're going to be able to populate it here. You're going to be able to get their contact information and reach out to them if you want to. And similarly, right, if you have any files that have to do with marketing here inside of this actual Teams environment. For example, we have a go-to-market here with Microsoft. So this went ahead and it popped up because of this market, right? It's close to marketing. It basically, it searched for it, it recognized it and it went ahead and it gave me direct access to this file. Right, this is an example. Obviously, when you actually have your teams built out, you're going to have a lot of different information, a lot of different messages and files that you're going to be working from, and so you're going to be able to see a lot more results inside of your own account. And so I just wanted to show you, because it's just going to make your life a lot easier for whatever reason you can't seem to find something. So please don't underestimate the power of the search function. Very useful, very effective, makes you able to navigate teams a lot easier than you would without it. Okay, so those are just a couple of housekeeping items I wanted to quickly show you. Let me pause here. Is there any questions before we get here into the command bar that kind of talks about some of the functions that you can do here inside the application? Any questions maybe that you came here today looking to answer about teams? Anything that we can discuss before we actually get started with some of the content? Okay, no worries. I have a question for all of you. And I'm going to demo actually one of the newest features here inside of Microsoft Teams meetings, which is polling. Okay, you can use polling as a way to pull information from the crowd, keep engagement up, get some feedback. I'll go ahead and I'll show you here. Just to kind of give you an example of what you can do. So inside of the Teams meeting, you should have received this poll that popped up inside of the meeting. I'm asking what your Microsoft Teams level is, or have you never used Teams? Are you a novice with Teams? Are you a complete expert? Right? Where do you currently stand with this actual application? How comfortable are you with it? This will give me an idea of, really how I can frame the conversation today as I'm going through the lab to really talk about specific things, specific settings. It'll give me an idea of what I may be able to focus a little bit more on. I see a new message. So let me go ahead and pop up here. Okay. Michael just went ahead and he went ahead and it looks like he sent another one live. How did you like the training? Okay, good, great. Right. These are all examples. If you want feedback, this is a great way to do it. The other one is really just about understanding, getting some information back from the crowd to see how you may be able to go ahead and get some feedback. Steve says, I use Teams a lot, but don't know most of the nuances. I would like to use it for calendar invites. Absolutely, Steve. We will definitely talk about that. Not going to be an issue as we get into some of this other content. Okay, so it looks like a lot of us are novices, one expert here. We're trying to, maybe we've used Teams, but we don't really know if we're using Teams to the fullest extent. So I think this is going to be a good lab just to give you an understanding of what's possible. And I do see Mary Lynn typing, so I'll go ahead and give her a second to send her message. I want to be more comfortable with Teams. Absolutely. That's what I'm hoping to do here today. Hopefully show you some of the different functions that are possible here. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to close out of that. I'm going to head here into the activity section. So go ahead and select activity on the left-hand side of your actual account. So what you'll notice here is I actually went ahead and I set up this environment a couple weeks ago. So you may not have a lot of different activity notifications in terms of your actual account. I've had a few groups run through this, so you may have a few, if they've been interacting with one another in those accounts. But really what activity is all about and what it's meant to be is a way for you to see what's going on inside of Teams that pertains to you directly. So for example, did somebody mention me inside of a Teams post section? We'll talk about that a little bit later today. Did they add me to a team, as you can see right here? Did they mention me directly inside of another message by replying to me, right? These are all examples of different ways you're going to get an activity notification. Again, it's going to pertain directly to you. Did they assign me a task, right? These are all different things that are relevant, but the point is they don't want you to be able to miss. They want you to be able to see what's going on inside of Teams so that you're always staying on top of the latest information that's out there. That's really ultimately fundamentally what it's all about. And so what I tell people is let's not make this too complicated. Let's keep it simple. Best practices. Let's go ahead and select activity every day the first time we get on so that we can check it to see any new updates. So Marilyn, are you inside of this Teams environment here on the web? I'm not sure if you're muted. Let me see if you're muted. Marilyn, you are muted in case you're speaking, just FYI. Or you can just go ahead and paste it in the chat window as well. Okay, she's typing. Yes, okay. Do you see on the top left, there should be an activity button here where you see, if you could just quickly go to my screen inside of the meeting so you can see my cursor. I'm pointing here to this activity button here in the top left corner, all the way to the left towards the top corner. It should say activity. It'll be right underneath this waffle icon or the 9 dots in a square. And it just says activity. It's got a bell icon. Do you see that? I'll give her a second just to make sure she figures it out. If anyone else is having any issues with anything else, it's a good time to ask a question about whatever function we're worrying about here inside of Teams. But again, activity is really just the fundamental first piece. This is just for any updates, any information that's going on out there. You want to make sure you stay on top of it and you don't miss. I'll say one other thing though. When we're talking about activity, we need to be careful with how we actually give notifications. The reason I say that is because if we don't properly mention people inside of the team, it's not going to give them an activity notification. It'll actually just bold the team channel. And so that's why I personally recommend, if we're going to be having a full-blown conversation, let's take that into the chat function. Okay. Marilyn, I'm not sure if you were able to figure it out. I'm going to go ahead and move on to chat for now, just because I haven't gotten a response. However, by all means, if you're still having issues, please let me know. I can walk you through it. She's typing. Okay. Okay, so in the meantime, you guys, everybody go ahead and click on the chat function on the left-hand side. You'll see chat right underneath activity. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up as well. Okay. So here inside of chat, ultimately what we're doing here is we're trying to have a way to be able to communicate internally in a way that makes the most sense for me. Teams tries to brand this as what we call the new communication experience, okay? And what we're saying here is that we're providing the organization and the company a more effective way to be able to communicate internally. The majority of people, unfortunately, to this day, are still going ahead and doing everything through email. And the one problem with email that you often find, right, is first of all, not everybody's checking email constantly. People are checking email maybe once an hour, once every 2 hours, once a day. Everybody's got their own way of doing it. And the other thing about that is that every time you send a new message, it's a new email, right? It's kind of annoying. And so if we wanted to have a way to communicate very quickly, have it in a chat form, right, where it's just message after message, it's really easy to see, easy to understand. Let's go ahead and start taking all those informal conversations, the simple questions, the simple, quick back and forths. Let's do all of that here in chat. Let's still, leverage email for those long form, formal communications, right? But let's do the majority of our internal communication here inside of chat. And so that's what I'm hoping to show you and kind of give you an idea of how you may be able to use this internally. However, I always like to start with the basics. I think it's the easiest way to do this. And so what I'm going to go ahead and do is ask everybody who's inside of the demo environment to go ahead and send my demo account a message, okay? The way that you're going to do that, okay, just watch carefully really quickly before you do it in case you don't know how to do it, is you're going to go ahead and right here where it says chat, to the right of it, there is this icon that's a square with a pen inside of it, it looks like. If you click on that, it'll go ahead and open up a new chat, okay? When you click on that new chat, it's going to give you an option to go ahead and enter a name, an email, a group, or a tag. In this case, you'll just be entering my demo name. Reminder, my name is Paul, okay? So if you're here inside of the chat, open up that new chat function, click Paul, and then send me a message, hello. So right here, looks like I just got a message from Joe, sent me a test. Go ahead and give a thumbs up, super awesome. Megan gave me another test, this is great. You'll notice every time you get a message, it's gonna populate here in the bottom right of your screen. So you can see Joe sent me a message, Megan did, so did Arnold, Sally, and Carlos. This is awesome. What's great about this is you'll know, again, because it's availability sensor, I can see, right, that Joe all the way up to Denise are actually currently on the application. So I know obviously they sent me a message, but regardless if they had sent it or not, I could see, right, that they're on, they're available, they're active, and I can quickly go ahead and message them and know that they're on the actual Teams environment. Okay. So great. So I got messages from Joe, Megan, Arnold, Sally, Carlos, and Denise. Is anyone having any issues sending that first message? I want to make sure I can help you out in case you are. Please, if you're having issues, this is why you're here today. So if you are, I'm happy to help. Steve.
Yeah,
All right.
I know how to send a message. It's just not working.
Okay, no worries. You're doing this inside of the demo environment, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you know how to send a message, right? You open up a new message. You have to go ahead and type in Paul.
I did.
Okay.
And then I typed in a message in the bottom and I hit the arrow and nothing happened.
Okay. Who's your account? What's your demo environment account? I forget.
I'm sorry.
Let me look. I gave you Hari. Okay. So let's see. I have not gotten a message from Hari. Let me go ahead and send Hari a message myself. So I'll go type in Hari, say hello, and I'll go ahead and press send.
All right.
Did you get a message from me?
Yeah.
All right, beautiful. So what's cool is you saw that he was typing, right? And then he went ahead and sent the message. Super quick, super easy. Love it. All right. Anybody else having any issues? Okay. So, this is the first fundamental piece to it, right? This is a simple communication. I'm sure we've all been able to figure this out, whether or not I said it. The reason I wanted to start this, though, to be completely honest, is I wanted to actually be able to see everybody who's on the actual application so that I can quickly actually put us together inside of a group. In reality, Teams is meant to be a digital workspace, right? It's supposed to be a place for you to be able to collaborate and communicate here inside of the actual Teams environment. Elvita, I did just get a message from you on this version of Teams. We're working inside of a demo environment. Let me go ahead and double check to see. I can go ahead and resend you your credentials just in case you need them in the chat window. So this is the email, and the password is create my journal 12. Point being, though, I did see, Elvita, that you were able to send a message. So that's a good thing. But like I mentioned, we're here inside of this demo environment, and this is where we're actually sending these messages. But like I was saying, right, we have this one-to-one communication, but it's meant to be a collaborative workspace. And so what I really think is one of the most efficient ways to communicate is to create those group chats with the people you're going to be working with constantly. And so I'll go ahead and I'll do that today. We're going to be working here with all of us in this group. So I'm going to add Joe. I'm going to add Megan, Arnold, Sally, Carlos, Denise, Sylvester, and Hari. Denise, oops. Okay, so I accidentally added everybody without adding Sylvester and Hari. Let me show you how you can actually add people to the meeting, to the group chat if that's the case. I'm going to go ahead and click on the +7 in the top right. This is going to denote everybody who's currently in this actual group chat. I'm going to click on add people. And then I'm going to go ahead and add Sylvester and Hari. And then I'm going to press add. Okay. So now it'll actually go ahead and I'll add them to the group chat. I can go ahead and send something to the group. Hello, team. And I'll press send. Feel free to go ahead and, reply to me. Give me a thumbs up. Send me a GIF. Send me an emoji. Whatever you like. My point being, we actually have access to this group chat now where we can collaborate. We can work together. We can get things done. So Arnold gave me a thumbs up. Super awesome. What I will say, though, one of the things that I've always personally run into is that if I'm not properly really organized, it's harder for me to be able to collaborate together very simply. It looks like we figured out the GIFs. This is awesome. And one of the ways that I'm talking about organization is I want to know exactly who is inside of every single one of the group chats that I'm working from, right? So I have Arnold, Carlos, Denise, and 6 other people. What happens if I have another group chat, that's got maybe 3 of those guys, but not everybody else? And so I want to go ahead and I want to name every single one of these chats that I'm a part of so that I have a really good understanding who I'm speaking with. And so what I'm going to do is right here, you see you have all the names. What I'm going to do is to the right of it, you see this pencil icon. I can click on it and I can go ahead and give us, let's say, for example, we are the marketing team, right? And now you'll notice it'll call us the marketing team. It's going to change the name, give the update, and I'm going to be able to easily denote that this marketing team is here on the left-hand side, and this is who I'm actually speaking with inside of this group chat. Fundamental first step I highly recommend here inside of Teams. The other thing I recommend, you'll notice that, Joe was the first person to send me a message, right? But as more people continue to send me messages, more people continue to communicate with me, each of those messages become less and less relevant because there's newer and newer messages. And so, you're going to have a way to combat this, which is going to be by pinning these group chats. You'll notice I did this with another group, and I went ahead and I pinned this group chat here towards the top because now every time I received a message from all of us, this group chat was static. It didn't move. It didn't actually go ahead and change. And I had easy access to this group chat every time I come into chat. And so that's what I always recommend. If you go ahead and you use it for, important chats, let's go ahead and pin them. But before I do that, I have a message from Hari. He says, can you chat with and from a team with users that are not in your company? So going to depend on a couple things here. First thing is whether or not you have guest access enabled, meaning you can work with people outside your organization. If it is enabled, then yes, you'll be able to chat with them, assuming they have a version of Teams, okay? Because this is a Teams chat. So if they don't have a Teams environment, they're not going to be able to message you inside of Teams unless they potentially have, some kind of third-party software that I'm not aware of. However, you can still communicate obviously through email with them. You can still go ahead and set meetings and get on video conferences with them. You just won't necessarily be able to send them chats directly because they don't have a Teams environment to send a chat back from. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm assuming that makes sense. All right, so I was talking about pinning these group chats. Let me go ahead and show you how you can do that. Anytime you hover over something in Teams, you'll notice that oftentimes there's an ellipses, these 3 dots that appear. In this case, I'm going to do this for the group chat. I'm going to click on this ellipses, and then I'm going to go ahead and pin this, okay? So go ahead and pin it, and now you'll see that this marketing team is going to be easily accessible, easy for me to get quick access to, right? This is one of the fundamental pieces that I highly recommend you do. It just makes it so much easier for you to be able to communicate with the group in a way that's seamless, simple, and easy to understand. So that's really housekeeping though, you guys. I'm just kind of showing you how I prefer to actually set up chat. Haven't really gotten into, some of the other really cool features. So I'm going to show you a few of them. And if you have any questions on them, please, by all means, let me know. This is what it's all about today. So first one, you'll notice there is a paperclip icon. Okay, so I can go ahead and click on this paperclip. You'll notice you can select from your OneDrive or your computer to actually go ahead and send these documents. I'll go ahead and do that. And I have this budget template that I can go ahead and open and send here inside of this environment. So I'll go ahead and open this up. And then I'll go ahead and send this budget template. Okay, what you'll notice is that this document is going to be able to be sent. I'm going to be able to quickly open up this document, get easy access to it, and start making edits to it right away. And that's the key thing to understand, right? If I start making edits to this document, and then I go ahead and I close this, it's going to automatically save those edits to this document. And so the reason I tell you to be careful here and why I tell, give people, word of caution is that, when you're using, the ability to send documents over chat, you want to be able to do this strategically. If you're sending this just for review, for somebody to take a look at it, to give you a little bit of feedback, makes total sense. But if you're using this as a way to collaborate, it's going to make it a little complicated because you're going to actually have to find that version of the document here inside of the actual chat where you sent it. And so what I recommend you do is let's go ahead and establish that document inside of a team or a channel where we know where it's living and inside of. And then let's send a link to that document so that we can make sure that when we collaborate, we're collaborating on the document that we're working from. Okay, I'll show you how to do that a little bit later on during the session today, but I did want to show you, you can send documents. You can send very large documents as opposed to email where there's a limited size. You can even send videos. I mean, I've done that before. So it is useful, something you can definitely use for whatever purposes you need it for. What's another really cool feature you can do here in Teams? You can actually set meetings directly from chat. I thought this was one of the most phenomenal things they created here. So in this case, right, we have this marketing team group chat. I can go ahead and I can click here on this calendar icon. So you notice it looks like a little calendar. It's got a plus. I can go ahead and I can select that. And what happens is that number one, it brings up a new meeting invitation. But number two, it automatically adds every single person in that group chat to the meeting invitation, right? I can go ahead and I can say, maybe this is a, marketing, oops, caps lock on. Maybe this is a budget review. Oops. Okay. So we want to see how much money we're going to be spending here for marketing this year. I can go ahead and I can schedule this. One of the tools you may already be using through Outlook that you can actually use here in Teams as well is the scheduling assistant, right? So, assuming we had calendars available to actually look from, we'd be able to go ahead and see, what time is available. For example, you know what? Looks like 10 a.m. looks like the appropriate time to go ahead and schedule this meeting. Go ahead and select the time. And then the other thing I'm going to show you, I'll explain this a little bit later on in terms of what I'm actually doing, is you can actually send these invitations directly into Teams and channels. This may not make a lot of sense to you if you don't fully understand what that is. Like I mentioned, I'll explain this a little bit later on. Just kind of want to go ahead and set the stage here. So I'm going to go ahead and send this in the general channel for the Contoso test team. Then I'm going to go ahead and click send. And you'll see if I go ahead and I come back here to this calendar, this budget review is available here on Wednesday from 10 to 10:30. Absolutely works. Absolutely a way for you to actually go ahead and schedule meetings, again, directly from chat. Incredible. One of the things they came out with that I thought was super cool, especially if we're using this strategically, if we're going to have meetings as teams, in departments. Obviously, these departments have to meet every now and then. Easiest way to schedule a meeting right here is going to be directly from your chat. And then obviously, the most important piece of chat, in my personal opinion, is let's say I'm messaging back and forth with this group or this individual, and it's gotten to a point where, you know what, instead of actually doing that, what I need to actually do is go ahead and just jump on a call with them. Okay, that's another option that you do have available here inside of Teams as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead here in the top right. You notice there's this video icon, there's this call icon. I'm just going to go ahead and quickly call everybody. I'll allow this camera. Continue without audio or video. But what you'll notice is that it's actually going to start calling every single person in this group chat to an actual meeting. If somebody were to pick up, I'd be able to jump on a call with them really quickly. It'd be a super easy way for me to start talking with them directly here from the chat. And so you'll see holistically how this is all going to come together, right? We're going to be able to not only message each other inside of the chat, I'm going to be able to schedule meetings from the chat. I'm going to be able to get on calls right away, all from this chat function. And so you'll see, right, when they're talking about the new communication experience, the reason they really bring it together and bring it together like that is because you're going to be able to do so many different things when it comes to communication directly from this chat function. Going to be a central piece of what you do here inside of Teams, because especially if we're collaborating, we want to have a very efficient and effective way to be able to communicate with one another. Let me pause there. I know I've covered a lot of different things. There may be some questions, maybe some concerns. Anything I can help with to help everybody understand? I'm going to go ahead and pause. Any questions, you guys? No questions from Sally. All right. Thumbs up to Sally. Okay, no worries. Hopefully that means I explained it well. If you ever have any questions, please, by all means, I'm here to help. So let me know. All right, so that's activity, that's chat, two of the most functional pieces here inside of the application. The next thing I wanted to quickly run through here was the Teams function. So I'm going to go ahead and click here on the Teams icon and select it. What you'll notice here inside of Teams, if you've ever used something like Slack before, it has a similar interface. The idea here behind Teams is we want to be able to put groups of people who are working together towards some type of common goal inside of one group, but then also be able to go ahead and segment that group into smaller pieces called channels. Okay. The reason you're going to be using these teams and these channels is, number one, you're going to have a way to communicate inside of the team. And number two, you're also going to be able to use it as your storage platform, your collaboration platform, as you continue to work on different documents and files inside of your organization. Something to note before we go any further, I kind of just want to touch on the security posture of Microsoft. This is meant to be a way for you to have secured access to anything on the go. Okay. Microsoft security posture is all based on identity management, right? Identity and access. What I mean by that is, everything that you put inside of a team is only going to be accessible to the person who actually was invited to that team. So let's say, for example, we have a few of us here on the line. Let's say, I have Katiana and I have Steve and myself on that same team. And then we have, let's say, Shayna, who wants to go ahead and access the document. Well, guess what? Shayna's not a part of the team. Number one, she's not going to be able to see that the team exists. Even if she gets a link to the document, she's not going to be able to open it because she does not have required access. This is how security is structured inside of Teams. Every document that's living and at rest and every document that's in transit inside of Teams is going to be constantly encrypted, right? So the security is very high level. You're going to get that enterprise security from the Microsoft 365 suite. Not going to be an issue. I just wanted to assuage any concerns if that was something somebody was worried about here on the call today. Another thing that you can actually take advantage of, and let me kind of explain this as well, is a private channel. So you'll notice, right, I can show you inside of business development, for example. We've got the business development team, we've got the general channel, the learning channel, the operations, and we've also got this channel that's got a lock on it. The reason this channel has a lock on it is because this is actually a private channel, okay? So the only people that I actually invited to this channel for myself, Paul, was Megan. Megan was the director of HR here. And so, she's actually going to be the only person that can see that this channel even exists. So if you're not Megan, I encourage you, go ahead and go into the business development team. Open it up and look. You should only be able to see general learning and operations unless you went ahead and you created your own private channel that I can't see myself. Right. So I just want to show you, this is an increased, additional layer of security. Let's say, for example, you have a team of 10 people. And for whatever reason, you and one other person wanted to have your own channel where only you had access and only you two were able to communicate and collaborate. You could go ahead and then create that private channel additionally on top of the first layer of security, which is the team, to then have that second layer of security for just yourselves. So there's a lot of options here, you guys. It's ultimately going to come down to how you want to organize this internally. But the thing to understand is that it's a secure platform and it's meant to be structured in a way where you can organize the way that you collaborate as a team. Okay, that's how Teams is structured. That's how Teams is meant to be used and leveraged. And so what I wanted to quickly do, assuming there's no questions, I can pause here for any questions. If you guys have something, maybe it doesn't make sense, I didn't explain it well enough, please let me know. But if there is not any questions, what I can quickly do is go here into this Contoso test. Okay, I'm going to come here into this general channel. And then what I want to do is quickly go over the post section, go over the file section, and then maybe show you a couple other things that you're going to be able to do here inside of this team. So, first thing I'll show you is we click on this general channel and you'll notice we have a posts section. This is what I was talking about in terms of where I think people have full-blown conversations that may not be as relevant. I'll give you an example, right? I did not get an activity notification for this vacation request Teams, but it looks like somebody here on 218 sent me a message, hi Andres, right? They sent me a message in here. I didn't get an activity notification for this. Why? Because they didn't mention my account directly. And so I didn't even see this until right now, to be completely frank with you guys, right? This is how there's potential issues. It's harder to actually mention. Another example here in this general channel, it's bolded. Let's see what's going on. Somebody sent an emoji. I didn't see that. Reason I didn't see that is because nobody was mentioned directly. I didn't get an activity notification about that. And so this is the first thing, first lesson I'm going to show you here inside of the general channel. I'll show you another example of that. Let's say, for example, one of us who's on here, I know that Carolyn is here with us and she is the account for Joe. So what I'm going to say is, for example, Joe, please make sure you bring coffee to the meeting. Okay. I need a cup of Joe. Okay. If I want her to actually be able to, or him in this case, to be able to see this message, what you'll notice is that Joe is not going to receive a notification for this. Why? Because while it may say their name, they're not mentioned in it using the @ symbol. Okay, so the way that you're going to be able to do this so that they actually receive a notification is I'm going to go ahead and show you, you can actually edit a message. So if you hover over it again, we have an ellipses. Okay, just like Sally just did. She did @Paul, right? You notice I now received a notification for that. Okay, it obviously didn't pop up there because I'm currently on the actual piece where it's located, but I'm going to do exactly what Sally just did. I'm going to go ahead and click on the ellipses. I'm going to go ahead and edit my message. And instead of just Joe, I'm going to put @Joe. Please make sure you bring the copy to the meeting. And I'm going to go ahead and select that and send that. And now Joe should have received that activity notification inside of their environment, assuming they're not currently in this actual piece of the environment, right? So Joe, he saw it, he was able to confirm it. I can go ahead and I can give him a thumbs up, right? And so the point reason I wanted to show you that is, number one, if you're ever going to be mentioning somebody, that's the best way to do it. But number two, I see the post section as an announcement board. I see it as a place where, you know, I have this essentially a large group chat with whoever's a part of the team. Let's go ahead and make it a way so that I can actually mention everybody and give everybody a notification if I'm doing an announcement. And so let me show you how you would do that. You click on new conversation, okay? And instead of mentioning one person directly, I'm going to click the @ symbol and I'm going to type in general because we're in the general channel. And I'm put @general. There is a meeting scheduled for 10 a.m. I go ahead and I send that. And now everybody who's a part of this Contoso test channel should now actually receive that activity notification that I sent a message for this meeting. That is the best way. That's the most effective way to send messages and alerts, because now I know for a fact that everybody I want to actually see the message has received an activity notification for it. So just pro tip, this is going to be the best way for you to do that. And this is really how I see the primary purpose of using the post section as a way to make announcements. I don't want to have full-on conversations. I want to take most of those conversations directly here into this actual chat feature. That's where I'm going to move most of my conversations. Any questions on that piece, you guys? Any questions? Karine, thank you for joining us today. Happy to have you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, great. So that is just the post section, that first piece. There's one other thing that I do recommend here inside of the post section. You'll notice, remember when I set the meeting, I told you I'm gonna schedule this inside of a channel and I'm gonna explain this later on in the session. Okay, the time has come. Let me go ahead and show you what I actually did. When I sent that in the actual meeting and I attached the channel, you remember I attached the general channel for the Contoso test team. So what ended up happening is now everybody who's a part of this team is going to be able to access that meeting directly from this post section. Michael?
Yep, I was just
Okay, gotcha.
waiting for you to finish this piece.
Yeah, so the only thing I was going to say, right, is we're scheduling a meeting, and now you can see as I go ahead and I open up this actual, link, I can then go ahead and access this entire meeting directly from this channel. I click on the join, I go ahead and I open up this meeting. And so let's say, for example, you've got a big group of people in your team, maybe 30 people. You don't want to individually add everybody to the invitation. Let's not waste your time and do that. Let's go ahead and just have them all in the team. Let's send the meeting invitation to that team. And it's just going to be a much easier way for you to go ahead and jump on a call with everybody. Michael?
And this gives you guys a way to kind of segment a lot of things. So we see a lot of people set up, teams based upon, specific matters that you might working for, or clients, or, events. At LAN, we have something that's set up like this with a sales team. So it's just a good way to centralize everything without everybody having to create an individual Outlook folder to track everything.
Absolutely. So this is, one of the pieces I definitely recommend is let's go ahead and have this budget review here meeting scheduled inside of the channel. One of the best ways to go ahead and schedule those meetings, or if you have any announcements, let's do this here in the post section. In reality, that's really the majority that I use the post section for. There is one other thing you might be able to use it for. Let's say you have an email that you wanted to forward into a specific team. You can actually go ahead and do that directly from the general channel. So what I can do is I can go ahead and click on get email address. And what actually is going on is that each one of these actual channels has its own email tied to it, right? So I can go ahead and I can copy this. Let me see if I can just quickly show you. I'll go into my Outlook. Not sure if I have any emails here, but let's see if I do. Okay, great. So I have this sales meeting, okay, that I have. Or maybe, I have an email that says I've been joined to a team, right? I can go ahead and I can forward this. So what I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on the forward button. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the 2. I'm going to put that Contoso team. And then I'm going to go ahead and press send. Right? And so now this actual meeting, or sorry, this message that I received in my email is going to go ahead and get forwarded directly into this team section. So you can see, right, this was actually added here. I have the message that says I was added to a team inside of Microsoft. If you have a message that you want everybody in the channel to be able to see, this may be something you can utilize it for the post section for as well. But again, this is a great way. This is an announcement most of the time from the email that you want to point out. So again, it's an announcement board for me. That's how I see it. Let's not have full-on conversations. Let's keep that in the chat function. Okay, so that's posts. That's how you use it. That's what I recommend you use it for. The next thing that you'll see is we have a files section. So if I go ahead and I click the files section, you can see I can go ahead and open this up. Okay. Inside of this this file section, you'll notice there's going to be a lot of different files. Yesterday when I was with the team, we created a potluck list. We'll probably go ahead and do that again today. I just think it's pretty fun, easy way for us to collaborate. But the point being, this Contoso test is going to show you, some different things that are available here when it comes to how you can store documents. You're going to have a few different ways to actually be able to do this. So, number one, if you're starting completely from scratch and you don't have anything in your teams, you can actually add a connection to your current cloud storage. So let's say you have everything in Google Drive and you wanted to start that transition to Teams just to kind of get started. You could actually go ahead and add that storage provider as a folder in the channel so that directly through that folder, I'd be able to access all the files living inside of that Google Drive account. Another option, I could go ahead and just upload everything. I could drag and drop. I could upload everything directly from my desktop, directly here into each of these different channels inside of all these different teams. I could sync my OneDrive. The one thing I will say though is, this is meant to be a collaborative workspace. So you're going to want to be careful on that. Maybe you don't necessarily want everybody to have access to all the documents in your OneDrive, but, I did just kind of want to show you the different options you have here. And then that last piece that you can actually do is you can actually go ahead and create individual documents directly inside of the Teams platform. That's what I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do today. You're going to click on the new button. Feel free to create whatever document you like. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and create another one of those potluck lists, right? But in this case, I'm going to call this potluck list 2 so that it's easy to differentiate. I just think this is a really fun way just to kind of show you what's possible when it comes to collaboration. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to number this, let's say 1 through 7. Okay, so now we have this document number 1 through 7. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'm going to show you again. Remember, I told you there's going to be a proper way to collaborate. Okay, so remember, we're creating this potluck list 2 as a way for us to be able to work together to develop this list of different items we're bringing to the party. Okay, in this case, I could send the document in the chat, but then again, remember that document is going to stay in the chat all the time. I'm going to have to access it directly from that actual chat function. And so I want it organized. I want it easily accessible in this channel because I know I'm putting all of my party essentials directly here inside of the general channel. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over this document. I'm going to click on this ellipses. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on copy link. Okay. When I copy this link, I'm then going to go ahead and click on the chat. I'm going to open up this marketing chat that we created, and I'm going to go ahead and send this message. Because now when I go ahead and I send this message, every single person who's directly here inside of this actual group chat will now be able to quickly click on this link, access the actual document, and start working with me as a team. And so I'll give everybody an opportunity, if you're here inside of this application, go ahead and open up that link. Looks like we have Arnold here already who opened up the link. You can see, as you're working here, I can actually see, who's doing what. You'll notice I can have this in editing form where anybody can make changes, or I can have this in review form where people can go ahead and add comments and suggest changes. What you'll notice is it tells you as more people join, right? So in this case, I now have Joe and I have Carlos here inside of this as well. Maybe, Carlos and Joe, you guys are in different locations as well as Arnold. Go ahead, start typing. I want everybody to see, what it actually looks like as we start making, different messages, right? This is meant to be a potluck list. So in this case, I'll add a 3. I'll say, I'm going to bring some steak, right? Looks like we have Carlos bringing pumpkin pie. We have Arnold here typing something out, and I have Joe here bringing some soda, and Arnold's bringing lobster. Look at that. So, my point being, what you can see here is that we can all succinctly work together inside of this same document at the same time, making edits that make sense for our specific collaboration space, right? This is going to be a way for us to be able to really optimize the way that we're working together on the different documents that we're working on as a team. Not sure if any of us have played the game before where you have a document, you download it to your computer, you send it over email to your coworker, they download it down to their computer, they make their edits, they save it, they download it back, they send it over, and you just play tag. It's just back and forth until you finally get to that finished document. Number 1, extremely inefficient. Number 2, adding additional storage that you don't need to have inside of your actual email. And number 3, right, who wants to actually have to work like that? We want to be able to do this seamlessly. We want to be able to do this in a way that's really easy for us to collaborate as a team. And so what you can see here is that this is giving you those abilities. This is giving you an avenue to be able to actually do this work, have it stored in the appropriate location, easily accessible and editable for everybody on the team. Okay, this is how I personally recommend you take care of things. I just think it's the easiest way to make sure you go ahead and get things done. So I'm gonna have to send them to voicemail, unfortunately. Any questions on this collaboration piece, you guys? This is one of the central pieces here for Microsoft Teams. I want to make sure I can really explain this in case something doesn't quite make sense. Any questions? Okay.
You're doing a great job. No questions. And guys, just because I know that some of you are attorneys or paralegals, or I know it also keeps track of the changes. So as you guys are doing a meeting, and I know someone said, oh, we want to use this for meetings, it's a great way to go out there and include this in part of your meetings, put the documents up in place there. It works within general Word or Word Online, and it keeps track of the changes also.
Yep, absolutely. One of the other things that I will mention as well is I get questions, like Michael mentioned, I can show you this, how you can actually do that, right? I can click on the review. And what I can do is I can go ahead and start tracking those changes for everybody. So, everybody else who's in here, maybe Joe, Arnold, or Carlos, if you want to start making some additional edits, I'll show you here in line 2 in case they don't have time. I can go ahead and say, okay, you know what? I'll bring some pecan pie. If we already have pumpkin pie, I personally prefer pecan. But what you'll notice now as I start making these edits, right, as I start making changes to the document, it's not actually becoming a part of it just yet. It's showing you the changes that you're making, but they're highlighted, they're colored because they're showing you, number 1, who's actually doing it. They're not allowing that to actually become a part of the document. The way for me to actually do that is I go ahead and I hover over the change and I go ahead and I accept that change, right? But everything going forward, because I have this review on, I can actually make sure I manage the different edits that I'm making here inside of the document. Maybe you want some even more granular control. Okay, you're not necessarily going to be able to do that directly here inside of Teams. However, you will be able to actually do that through SharePoint. And so now I can really bring together all these different pieces and different tools that you're going to be using inside of your organization. So I'll go ahead and I'll come back here to this office home. Okay, this is where we first started. You remember from here, we actually went ahead and we clicked on the Teams icon. What I kind of want to show you is how this all works together. I haven't quite mentioned this yet, so let me kind of just get into it a little bit. Teams is the extension of SharePoint for the document storage piece. If you have Microsoft 365, if you used it, you know that you can have Teams as your digital workspace. And one of the functions of Teams is that you can start storing those files and collaborating like we were doing today. However, the actual backend repository where you're storing all those documents online is going to be through SharePoint. So any of those edits that you're making, all those different things that you're doing inside of Teams are going to be saved inside of SharePoint as well. And you can actually access SharePoint through the web directly here through the SharePoint icon. So I'm here on office.com. The icon right above Teams is this S in teal. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. What you'll notice is it now gives me the different sites that I'm related to. In this case, I'm here in Azure Direct because that's the actual account that I'm working out of. I'm in the documents section, and inside of that general section for the Contoso test team, I can see that I have this potluck list 2 that we were just working on, right? The beauty here is if I go back, you can actually see the additional controls that I have access to through SharePoint. I can go ahead and hover over the document. I can click on this ellipses. Okay, this is the 3 dots for that potluck list 2 inside of SharePoint. And you'll notice I'm going to have more granular control. Did I want to manage access to it, for example? Did I want to lock it so that only specific parties can actually make edits to this? Did I want to lock it so that nobody can make edits? It's just a file that's just sitting there inside of Teams. Nobody can actually change it. Did I want to see a version history, right? So if I go ahead and I click on version history, let's say I wanted to see what this document looked like, 5 minutes ago. You'd be able, as it goes ahead and it works on it, it'll actually give you a list of all the different options. You can select from one of them. For example, let's try 748. It actually asks me if I want to go ahead and open Word. It starts contacting this server. As you can see, it's actually opening this up. So I'll go ahead and do this. Let me sign in right here real quick. Azure Direct. I'll go hit next. Okay, you know what? It's giving me issues. I'm signed into my regular account already. I just realized it's going to cause problems. This is not a demo. However, my point being, if I wanted to open this, right, I could just quickly view this. And it's going to give me direct access to this actual version history. I can delete the actual version. I can restore the document to its original version. And really, it's going to come down to that granular control. If you want to have more control over the actual life of the document, you're going to be able to do more things directly through SharePoint. However, you're still going to be able to do a lot of those things inside of Teams as well. But given that, we're here inside of SharePoint, I'm trying to really bridge this gap between both Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive, just to give you an example of how they all kind of work in sync and in conjunction with one another. Again, Teams is that front-facing application that we're using as our digital workspace. SharePoint is the back-end online repository for storing our documents. And OneDrive is going to be the central place for us to share things outside of our organization. In this case, right, we're here inside of SharePoint. What you can see here is we also have an option to share. Right, so if I want to go ahead and click share, I'd be able to go ahead and make it so that anyone inside of my actual team would be able to go ahead and start accessing this document. The key here, though, is that you want to do this in a way where only people that you're working with in your organization will be able to go ahead and use this link. You'll notice that I can do anybody in my company with the link, anybody with existing access, or I could just put specific people here to go ahead and be able to access this actual document. What I will say is you're not going to want to be using SharePoint as a way to share things outside of your organization. Main reason for that is, just a security principle, to start with, is that you don't want to be sharing things outside of your central repository of documents. Since SharePoint is that place where you're storing a lot of that company information, best practice recommendations is we can use SharePoint as a way to collaborate internally within our organization. But if we're going to be sharing outside of the organization, we're going to do that through OneDrive. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come back here to this office home.
You had one question about what
Yeah.
columns you might add in that SharePoint piece.
I apologize. Let's see that.
Anything that any SharePoint file property could be added there.
Right here towards the top or
No.
right here?
Right there, they asked what column could be added. So you can see that you can add anything that's part of that SharePoint document.
Yeah, absolutely. If you wanted to just organize it according to these specific guidelines, I'll tell you one of the other things that you can do in here that I didn't really touch on is you can create lists where you essentially add columns for information that you're trying to gather. And so if you go ahead and then integrate, applications, and you put a connection between that application and SharePoint, it's going to go ahead and store that information and organize it according to those columns as people continue to fill out that Power App, for example.
And the one thing I do want to emphasize for coast to coast and legal aid users, this takes some plan. So you shouldn't attempt this on yourself. Yes, in Teams, you have the ability to create, teams and channels, but it does affect naming conventions. So if you go in and you want to delete something, it still adds it in SharePoint. All I'm emphasizing is that there is some planning that should be put into this. So you should be, reaching out to George or David to discuss this, or even us at LAN, before you just start attempting to drag files up and move things out. And then lastly, those documents, if by accident someone deletes them or takes them out there, Microsoft keeps those only in the deleted items for 30 days. So it's all I'm emphasizing is, yes, this is so cool, and it's a great way of showing us. We're giving you guys ideas, but you should look out to get a planning session going with IT before you attempt this on your own.
Absolutely. Worst thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and get started and start using it for 3 months and then realize it's going to be a mess. Last thing you want to do, right?
And then you put stuff up and you had to move it around. So I emphasize that because I know we've had some discussions, with David and George about implementing SharePoint and Teams. But just keep in mind, is just this way is that any one of us could use the browser for anything. Everyone has their choice of browser. Think of Teams as that browser to your front end for everything Microsoft. And then think of the actual teams and channels of a better way of organizing things. So that organization takes some planning, and that's all I just want to emphasize before everyone goes back and starts moving things around and I get yelled at by staff, management. What did you tell these guys?
Appreciate it, Michael. Thank you for that context. Absolutely. All right, so that's SharePoint. Before we get right back into Teams, let me show you one last thing for sharing outside the organization, which is for OneDrive. This looks like a little cloud, okay? Just want to show you the capabilities, okay, so that you know what's accessible and what's possible for you. I'm going to go ahead and let's say I'm just going to create this test document, okay? I'll just call it test, and then I'll go ahead and I'll close this out. Okay, so now I have this document. The reason I recommend you go ahead and you do the sharing outside of your organization from OneDrive is because you have more controls in place for it. So I can go ahead and I can click on share. What you'll notice is that if I click on this anyone, you'll see the different options I have available. I can make it so that anyone with a link to this document can open it up. Only people in my organization, only people with existing access, or maybe a specific group of people that I directly assign to this. Additionally, right, if I just go to anyone with a link, because this is a typical one that people use, let me show you some of the controls that you have in place. I can allow editing or not, right? So that's my first option. Assuming I do not allow editing, I just want people to go ahead and review this. I can then go ahead and set an expiration. So maybe I only want it to be accessible for a day. And I want to go ahead and set a password as well. I'm just going to use password because it's pretty simple. In addition, one of the coolest features here is I can actually block downloads. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to have the password, which is password. And then I'm going to go ahead and apply all those policies and then go ahead and copy that shareable link. And so now that I have that link copied, I can then go ahead and send this over email to somebody. I can send it over chat to somebody in my team. In this case, I'm just going to come back here into this marketing team's chat, and I'm going to go ahead and press send. I encourage all of you, go ahead and click on that link. Try and open it up. Try and download it. You can see all of those tools are absolutely a piece of what you can do. I can go ahead and I can click on this SharePoint link. You'll notice it's now going to go ahead and ask me for a password. I can type in password. I can verify that, and then go ahead and get access to this document directly online through this link. This is going to be a phenomenal way for you to share outside the organization. You're still going to be able to collaborate on it. It's going to automatically save. It's going to be synced, and it's just going to be a much more secure way to do that. And so I just kind of wanted to mention that. Obviously, if you're working with somebody over time regularly inside of Teams, then let's go ahead and do that inside of Teams. But I'm just mentioning, if you're sending something over to somebody outside, they just want to take a look at it. You want to share it with them. That's typically best practices for actually doing that. I just kind of want to show you again, bringing together the entire Office suite, what you can use for different functions of your business. But we're back here into the Teams portion, and I can quickly get back here into the Teams section. Because the next thing that I actually wanted to talk about was the integration of, different applications. One of the things that people don't, realize here inside of Teams is that obviously each of these are on their own separate environments, right? So if I'm here inside of the sales team section, for example, I can have access to my posts again and access to files inside of each of those individual channels. But one of the things that I don't think people really talk about enough about Teams is how it's so well integrated with third-party applications. And that's why I really tell people Teams ultimately is a platform more than just an application, because you're going to be able to integrate a variety of different things into Teams that help you function and do your business a little bit better. Because again, we want to make it so that you can do the majority of your work from one central location. And that central location in this situation is Microsoft Teams. So what I'll show you, you can do inside of any one of these channels, you can go ahead and you can click on this plus icon. When you click on the plus icon, you'll notice that it's going to have a lot of different tabs, which are essentially applications that you can integrate into these specific functions of Teams. So if you have, a third-party application that you're currently using today, something that you use regularly, you leverage it all the time, go ahead and search for it. I'll tell you, the amount of things that are possible here inside of Teams are starting to grow over and over, more and more, it seems like every day. And so, just search for it, see if it's available. It probably would be my guess. In this case, though, I'll show you a couple here that Microsoft recommends for most teams that I think would be very helpful for you. I'll go ahead and I'll start here with OneNote. Has anyone ever heard of OneNote before? Do you use it? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Any opinion? I'm happy to talk about it. Anybody ever use OneNote before? Okay, well, this is good then. If you haven't used OneNote, this will probably be a good little introduction to what you can do with it. I'm going to go ahead and click on create a new notebook. I'm going to just say notebook, and then I'm going to press save. What you'll notice is that this is now going to become a central location where you can start taking down information for the team. Okay, I think this is an essential piece of pretty much every channel, because for most channels, we have that channel created because we're going to be working together. And oftentimes when you're working together, you're going to have meetings where you need to take down some information that you guys actually ran through, that you talked about, and that you worked on. And so what you can actually do here inside of this notebook is, and I'll go ahead and I'll click on this to kind of spell it out a little bit better. You can create sections. And inside of each of those sections, I can then go ahead and add pages that I can use as a place to take notes. So I'll tell you, one of the things that I do pretty much for every notebook is I go ahead, I'll rename it to my meeting notes. Okay, inside of my actual account, I'm going to have a meeting A, for example. I may have a meeting B, and then I can go ahead inside of each of these individual ones and start taking random notes. But the beauty here, and the reason that I like it, is let's say, myself, Tara, and Steve are here together on one meeting, and for some reason, Katiana could not make it. Okay, she was out. What's great about this, given that it syncs with everyone's account and it's inside of this digital workspace, this collaboration zone, she can then go ahead and come here into this notebook. She can see, okay, I missed this meeting A from Wednesday on the 24th. I can go ahead and open this up. I can see the notes. I can stay caught up, and we can all share and ideate the different information that we've been working on and collaborating on. So, if you want to have a central location where you can take notes and organize all that information, you're absolutely going to want to integrate OneNote into each channel. I just think it makes your life easier, it keeps you organized, and it's a great way for you to be able to, stay on top of everything that's going on inside of your environment. Any questions on OneNote? I think this is, definitely a critical piece, something that you're going to want to do pretty much for every channel. Okay, that's OneNote, you guys. One other thing that I recommend, tasks. Are tasks ever something that you need to go ahead and assign to people? Do you want to be able to track them appropriately? Do you want to be able to see a dashboard where you can see, what you've assigned to people, what still needs to get completed, how you can really organize what needs to get done ultimately? That's what you're going to want to do. And by doing that, you can go ahead and integrate what's called tasks by planner. So I'll go ahead and click on the plus. You notice it has this little icon here. I can go ahead and click on Task by Planner. I'll go ahead and call it Tasks, and I'll go ahead and save this. Okay, as this goes ahead and it creates this new planner here inside of my actual channel. The functionality is phenomenal because ultimately it's going to make sure things get done. That's what it's all about. Okay, I'll give you an example. I'll go ahead and add a task here. Maybe I want a budget, a report on the marketing budget. Okay, let's say I want somebody to go ahead and complete that. I'm going to set a due date to this. Maybe I want this first thing on Monday next week, and I want to go ahead and I want to assign this to Arnold. I'm going to assign this to Bradley. I'm going to assign this to Carlos, Joe, and Megan, let's say, for example. Then I'll go ahead and click add task. What's awesome about this is now every single person that I added to this, and I can go ahead and add an additional person if I wanted to, is going to receive an activity notification that I assign them a task to report on this marketing budget. I can open up this task a little further to add additional, specifications. Maybe I want to say I need this Monday morning. Okay, just let them know this needs to be done ASAP. Maybe I want to add a checklist. I want an itemized report. Maybe I want it to be 5 pages for whatever reason. I want it to be region specific. Whatever you really need this for. The point is you can add these individual checklist items to kind of give them an idea of exactly what they need to accomplish in order to ultimately complete this actual task. And what they're going to be able to do is they're going to be able to send me comments back, right? They're going to be able to mention something inside of this task if we want to kind of go back and forth on it. I can add an attachment that maybe shows an example of what I'm looking for. And all of the users that I actually assigned it to can come in here and let me know, okay, you know what? I did the itemized report. I've got it 5 pages long. I just haven't broken this down into specific regions. So before I actually complete the actual marketing report, I need to go ahead and do that function as well. And so, these are all different examples of how you can make sure you organize this appropriately and you stay on top of what needs to get done. You can use this for a variety of different ways. You could do this, on projects. You have these buckets, right? So inside of these buckets, maybe you have a specific project where you want to list all the tasks that you need to get completed to complete that specific project. I'll give you another example. When I used to onboard new clients, what I would do is I'd itemize tasks by week. So I create different buckets for different weeks. And inside of these different weeks, I'd go ahead and add tasks that I wanted to complete to actually go ahead and make sure we completed what was needed inside of each of those weeks. There's, a different, views of this as well, that I want to see this through a schedule, that I want to see this in the chart manner to see, kind of a dashboard of what's been completed, who's assigned tasks, who needs to complete things. Or maybe I want to see this in a list view if it's just easier for me to kind of understand. Really, it's all about how you want to look at it, how you want to see it. And really, it's all about, again, making sure your tasks are completed on time, you get things done appropriately, and you don't have any issues completing what needs to get done. And so this is really, again, the ability to really integrate these third-party tools, or it could be the tools from Microsoft that you're currently using, is just going to make you be able to use Teams a lot more effectively and get the most power out of the application. Because now you're extending Teams, right? You're not just using Teams for what it can do. You're also using Teams for what's possible to be done inside of Teams as you go ahead and establish those connections with third-party tools. Let me pause there. I know I gave you a few examples. Michael, if you wanted to add in anything else here on maybe other tools that you recommend, by all means. But I just wanted to see, is there any questions? Does this make sense? Anybody have any comments for me?
And again, I think this is a great tool. We use it in-house for everything. It just takes some planning that goes out there. And so far, everything that we showed you is included in your subscription. When Andres put up the plus that was out there with all of those other applications that are out there, some of those applications, or actually most of the non-Microsoft applications, do require you to have an account. So even though it looks good to say, hey, you know, there's Adobe Acrobat, there's
Yeah.
Busy, there's any of the ones that are there, or Box, they do require, you know, third-party subscriptions. And it's just a way that you have one spot to have your team go to some place and see everything. So that's the idea of having, you know, all of these pieces in there. And again, you know, we have seen some, you know, professional services firm, you know, we work with a lot of law firms where, you know, the top part of the team could be the client name. There could be specific matters that you're working on to become the channels, and just making it an easier way to collaborate. And that way everybody individually doesn't have to control everything. It just takes some planning.
Yep. You know, it's all about organizing this so that it works as effectively as it can for you. You want to make sure this is an asset. It's not a liability necessarily. So just kind of want to make that clear. If there's no questions, you know, that's totally fine. Hopefully that means I'm explaining things well. I go ahead and move here into the calendar piece to kind of answer, Steve, what you were talking about in terms of scheduling meetings. So, you know, the first thing that I always get asked is, how does this relate to my Outlook? Is this the same? Is it different? You know, how does it work? And so, you know, really ultimately what it comes down to is this is absolutely going to sync with your Outlook. Anything that you place inside of the actual Teams environment is going to be available only for, you know, the people that you can see that are tied to all of those different invitations. However, you know, the invitations that you're creating through Outlook and you're creating through Teams, they're going to be available in both locations. They're going to have the same meeting links, the same information. There's really going to be very minor discrepancies. I will say, you know, only the major difference that I have seen really in totality is that the majority of, you know, smaller different tools that you can use inside of Outlook aren't necessarily all available inside of Teams. So for example, you can set both appointments and Teams meetings inside of Outlook. You can only set Teams meetings inside of Teams. You can see other people's calendars inside of Outlook. You can only see your own here inside of Teams. Those are small minor differences, but again, what's really relevant, the meeting link, the meeting information, that's all going to be available and accessible here through the calendar function. And really the whole point is, again, what Michael was really mentioning is we want to have that one central workspace where we can really review all the information that's important to us. And so this is what the calendar function is all about, okay? We're talking about scheduling meetings. You know, Steve, you were asking about that. There's going to be a variety of ways that we can do that. Number one, I can go ahead and hover over a section. So let's say from 11 to 12, I wanted to schedule this meeting. I can go ahead and schedule that, add the title, add the attendees, go put some notes, and then go ahead and send it over. Same thing here. If I want to go ahead and click on new meeting, I can go ahead and do the same thing. It's going to give me the same meeting invitation that we just saw. Additionally, you saw that I was able to schedule the meeting from chat, right? This is another example of what you can do inside of Teams. So those are going to be the primary ways that you can set meetings. And again, if you do it from Teams, it's going to automatically create a meeting invitation that's going to have a link attached to it. It's not going to have something that's only going to be accessible with just a meeting, you know, on your calendar. Always going to have a link if you're doing it through Teams. There's also this other concept called the Meet Now function, and I'll just quickly demo this. What you'll notice is that when you click this Meet Now function, it actually goes ahead and it connects it here. And what happens is that it creates a brand new meeting with just yourself, right? And so what I'm going to be able to do is I can quickly go ahead and invite people to this. I can copy the join info and send it to them over email so that they can join me here. Or, you know, one of the things that you can actually do that I personally enjoy is you can record yourself while still using all the functions of Teams meetings, right? So if I want the background that I'm using today, for example, I'm only going to be able to do that if I record directly through a Teams meeting and actually go ahead and record that. I'm not going to be able to do that if I'm doing that just through my regular web camera. So there's reasons and reasons not to use the Meet now. Just wanted to go ahead and show you another way that you'd be able to set a meeting and start jump on a call with another person, either inside or outside your organization. The last thing I will mention here is that there is this concept of a live event. If you've never looked at a live event before, this is going to be a really great way for you to be able to host, very, very comprehensive meetings that are one-to-many, meaning, this is meant to be a back and forth so that you guys have an opportunity to ask me questions, collaborate with me, send me things in the chat window. But if you just wanted to have, more webinar style where you're presenting something and you have an audience, but they don't necessarily want to have a back and forth, you can go ahead and create these live meetings. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and click on the drop down, and you'll notice instead of scheduling a meeting, I can also create this live event. And when I go ahead and I create this live event, I can give this, I'll just call it a test live event. I can invite additional presenters to the actual live event. So maybe I'll add, Megan here. And I'll also add, who else is here? Joe is here. Just to give you guys a couple of examples. I go ahead and click next. You notice I can make this public. If I allowed for guest access on the back end, I can make this just org-wide or specific people in groups. I can add a recording to attendees, and attendee engagement report, and a Q&A. And I can go ahead and I can schedule this. What's going to happen is that you're going to have both an attendee link and you're going to have a join link for your presenters and your producers. What you want to make sure that you do is that you only send this specific attendee link to the attendees. You don't send them this join link. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll get this attendee link. I'll go ahead and close this out just for a second. And I'll send that attendee link here to the marketing team. Right, so that now you guys could go ahead and access that if you wanted to. But the point being is that if I go ahead and I click on this test, right, and I open this up, and then I join this on the back end, better in the Teams app. You see, I can only show this in the Teams app. Okay. The problem is I can't really show you, but the point is maybe I can just search for it really quickly. What you're going to be able to do here, here on the back end with a live event. So I'll just show you Microsoft live event. I want to show you what the interface looks like. Okay. Producer. I'll go ahead and give you an image. What you're going to be able to do here, this is a good one to show you, is on the bottom here, you're going to be able to see, let me see if I could zoom in. You're going to be able to see, the different icons or presenters that you want to actually send live. You're going to be able to put specific things in the actual view that you wanted to go ahead and send. Okay, so you click on a document or a presenter, you put them here into the queue, and then you click on the send live function. So then what happens is that they get sent live to the audience, and in the meanwhile, while they're talking and they're presenting their specific material, you can now get the next thing ready to go and put them in the queue and then go ahead and send them live. And so this is, again, another way if you're going to be hosting, pretty good events, and you want to have a comprehensive, really professional way to actually do this, this is going to be an option that you're going to be able to leverage here inside of Microsoft Teams.
Included in the subscription, and I think that we've all had the same thing, whether you're running a webinar or an event or presenting, you always kind of think, what is everybody seeing? So this is a good one-to-many way, and it will accommodate multiple speakers and multiple presentations. So you can kind of see what really goes behind the scenes. Very simple to use, and Microsoft uses this plenty of time for thousands. I know I've been on an event where they've used this with 30,000 people. So kind of cool if you're doing a simple event. And then one other piece that I just wanted to bring up that as you do meetings and utilize this. So yes, I have a Zoom account. Yes, I have a couple of other accounts that are out there, but we try to do almost everything through Teams. So when you all got the appointment for today, you'll notice that there was a Teams meeting link. And we also had a telephone number to dial in for those people that maybe had bad internet connections or just wanted to dial in. That's the only extra in the Teams piece. So if you're doing a lot of meetings with external people and you want them to have the ability to dial in, you'll have to contact IT. It's an additional license to have an individual dial-in telephone number. So I just wanted to bring that up. But I live by this, and I do everything in Teams because I want everything in my calendar. and I want to be able to have it integrate across all of my devices. And I turned on my camera because you can see I got a couple of laptops here. And I also have a device that is just for my Teams meetings. This is a $300 device. But what's kind of cool is while I'm on here, if I go on Teams on any other device, including my phone, it tells me that I'm on the Teams meeting with you guys, and I can actually transfer it to that device. So to kind of give you the oohs and ahs of some of the things, and we'll let Andres continue. But Teams becomes very powerful, and I could quickly run out to my car now if I had to go someplace or go to another device, have it transfer, and no, if I wasn't on video, of course, you'd never see me moving, and you wouldn't know what device I was on. But we use it for everything, and it works really well.
Absolutely. All great points, Michael. And it's actually a good transition here to the calling piece. I'll just briefly mention this. You know, calling outside of your organization, you can always schedule a Teams meeting, right? That's always going to be a possibility. But if you want to do actual calls from a phone number and be able to call another number, you're going to have to enable voice over IP inside of Teams. You can do it with a provider that you sync here into Teams. You can do it strictly through Teams, through their calling function. Really going to come down to what makes the most sense for you. However, I will recommend you take a look at this, right? You know, one of the primary reasons is the power of voice over IP, I think, is unparalleled, right? One of the things that I saw a lot happen, and I always mention this during these labs, is, you know, people make that investment into an on-prem phone system, and then guess what happens when the pandemic hits and everybody's working from home, right? Nobody's got access to their phone anymore. And so if you want to make it so that people can have access to their phone anywhere they have access to the internet, right? And at this point, internet is pretty much anywhere, right? Anywhere you go, you got Wi-Fi available to you. You're going to be able to enable that inside of Teams so that now you have that comprehensive workspace where not only can I be able to communicate internally, I can store my messages, store my files, I have access to my calendar. On top of that, I'm now going to be able to make all of my business phone calls directly through my Teams application, online through office.com, or on my actual desktop, or sorry, mobile phone application. Right. So if we really want to bring all that together, definitely a good option to look into.
And I will also say that for all of you coast to coast or legal aid users, you know, again, you have a phone system, but if you needed to contact, you were doing something on your computer and you wanted to ping someone in Immokalee, or you wanted to ping someone in the Naples office, you know, without having to dial anything, you could do all of this through the internet and not have to worry about what your telephone is. My mom had some surgery on her knee yesterday. I was in the parking lot out there, and I had Wi-Fi or cell coverage, but I was able to go out there and you know, dial through my device to go out there, because, you know, at LAN, if you called for support, we're all over the 3 counties. So what happened with us is that, do I call, you know, Peter at my help desk on my physical phone device? Do we go? So we opted to internally do everything through Teams. So on my cell device, if, you know, one of the help desk people needed to get a hold of me, instead of hunting down what my cell phone number is, you know, which should I call, they'll just hit the Teams call, because sometimes you're chatting back and forth with someone, like 100 chats, and you could have resolved this in a quick phone call. So built in today in your configuration is that you can call people amongst your organization, anyone in your organization that's out there. And there's a way to also add on a different type of phone system so that Teams could be your front end to call anything, you know. So I try to use Teams for everything because I got headsets, I got devices, so it's kind of cool. So today you can call person to person, anyone inside your organization, and to dial outside your organization is a different type of plan, but it's very helpful to use it to contact people instead of sending 50 emails. You know, I usually say 10 emails actually equates to like 50 chats, which you could have resolved with one phone call.
Yep, exactly. That's what I'm a phone call guy. I like to get on the call. I think it's more personal, it's more fun. So definitely something to look into. I know we have a little bit of time left here. I also like to always kind of demo some of the really cool features we have inside a Teams meeting really quickly. So let me go ahead and share my screen here so you guys can all see this. Okay, so this is my view of the Teams meeting. I have my developer preview on, so there may be a couple things that you see here that you may not have access to. Number one, but doesn't mean that you don't have access. I'll show you what you may not have. First one, though, that you should always have access to is this participants icon. You can see everybody who's in the meeting, right? If somebody's making noise in the background, I can hover over their name. I can go ahead and mute them if I wanted to. Or maybe, they're the center of attention. I wanted to go ahead and spotlight Michael here because he's presenting for us today, right? He's going to be the only video that, is going to be front and center for us. Probably not too big of a difference right now because he's the only other person on video. But the point is, if you wanted to do that, you have the option to as well. Additionally, one of the things that I always see people have issues with is, oh, I can't join the meeting, I'm having issues. So one of the best ways to actually solve that is, you have this join info. It looks like 2 interlocking circles. If you click on that, it actually copies all of the join info for the meeting. And so if you then wanted to go ahead and send that information over email, it's going to be a great way for you to be able to do that and get that access to them. I'll send this here inside of the chat window so you can see what this looks like. And so now, right, you'd be able to come in here, click on this meeting link, or be able to call in using that information that you have here from that meeting invitation information. We also have these other cool little features, right? You've seen the chat already. If I wanted to raise my hand, right, easiest way to get somebody's attention. And they're coming out with these new features, right, where you have the laughing emojis, you have the thumbs up Michael just showed you, got the heart emojis for whatever reason you might want to use that. These are just going to come out, again, another way to keep your meetings engaged and organized and just kind of a little bit of fun. We saw the polling, right? This is a new feature that you can integrate into meetings. If you want to get a little bit of feedback, you want to show people what you can do in terms of getting information and organizing that as you go ahead and you follow up with them, or you go ahead and you get some feedback. This is just a great way to keep people engaged. I think it's fun. I think it's exciting. Makes people, continue to pay attention as you're continuing to speak during whatever meeting you're using it for. And then the last thing I wanted to show you here was some of the more actions. I think this is really some of the cool pieces that you may have access to that you may not fully be aware of. Number one, there's this together mode. If you guys wanted to turn on your camera, if anybody wanted to go ahead and go out on a limb and turn on their camera just here for a second, I want to just quickly demo this together mode. I think it's kind of fun. So we see Steve's coming on here. Awesome. We have Tara. I'll go ahead and click on this together mode for everybody just to kind of show you. This is fun, it just kind of brings people together. Is it going to change your life? Maybe not. But, I just think it's kind of cool. It's kind of fun. I can go ahead and I can change this scene. Maybe I want to put us together here in this executive table, right, for whatever reason. Or maybe I wanted to come here, out, on the steps, just kind of have us all working together. You'll notice it kind of resizes us, right, so that we can all be the same size. It's kind of fun. It's kind of cool. I just think it's a nice little addition here to the Teams platform. Some other stuff that we can do here. I'll go ahead and I'll minimize this to the regular gallery just so I can show you this. We got backgrounds, right? So I always tell people, as much as I'd love to, take credit for this beautiful office, in reality, right, I've just got a white background. That's all it is, right? But it's a phenomenal look here inside of the actual platform because I can actually go in and apply these individual backgrounds that I like. You can put your own logo, right? So if you wanted to have your own logo for your organization, that's one of the things that I recommend. I think it's kind of cool for your meetings, right? You just go ahead and you click on the add new and you go ahead and add those additional logos for your specific business. One of the really cool functions, I'll go ahead and I'll turn on live captions here. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to go ahead and load up. But for accessibility purposes, if you wanted to turn on captions so that you could see who's speaking, what that information sounds like, what they're saying, you're going to be able to turn that on during the actual meeting as well. And so, the other piece to that is every time you record, like today, as we're actually recording this meeting, we're going to be able to go ahead and actually transcribe the meeting after the recording actually ends. So you notice the closed captioning just turned on. So I'm waiting for it to go. There we go. So you see, as I continue to speak, it catches what I'm saying. Michael, if you wanted to say something just to show.
And you'll also see that we hope in the next couple months that if you were bilingual and felt better hearing, seeing the captioning in Spanish or Portuguese or Mandarin, they'll have that. We've had a lot of requests for that. And then the part that I always like to say, but I don't want to test, is that if you are doing this for business reasons, and someone on the other side might have a foul mouth, if you actually turn on the captioning, it will use artificial intelligence to bleep out most dirty words. I've tested this a couple of times. It'll bleep it out on our voice, and it'll actually just put, asterisks in the text. So I have tried this a couple times, and I don't want to try it with too many people that I don't know that well, but trust me, it works. So yes. Microsoft uses some background stuff, but the translation is amazing. I've seen this live, with Microsoft showing this, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's something that's absolutely, I think that's one of the big things they're going to start rolling out pretty soon. So I think it's pretty cool. Something to note, I know as we're going on video conferencing, all of us may be working from home. Our kids may be, pulling all the internet so that things aren't working as swiftly as possible. If that's ever an issue and it's causing issues for you, notice there's this turn off incoming video, right? So if I wanted to go ahead and select that, it actually turns off everybody that's actually on video so that it's using less power to actually go ahead and power the meeting. So just something to keep in mind if you ever run into issues with the internet, just go ahead and turn off incoming video because it's not going to require as much to actually go ahead and load all that up. So go ahead and turn off live captions here. Last thing that we always like to demo is breakout rooms, right? It's a new feature that rolled out here. Michael, I'm not sure if you wanted to quickly demo that for everybody.
You know what? Before we go, just a couple other cool things that are in here, guys. I wanted to say that inside of the settings, there's this high-end noise canceling that could be set up. It's always one of those cool things that are set up. I'm just going to make sure mine's there. So listen, you know what? I'm working from home. This is my home office. Usually big appointments. Every time I do one of these, I attract my gardeners. The guys at my window, or last week I had my dog barking. So I think that I'll try to put on some music just to see if you guys hear it. And it's one of those things that. So I'm playing something now. You guys could see it. I don't know if you're hearing it or
very minor, very minor, yeah.
But the video that Microsoft has, and you can Google Microsoft, noise canceling, is the guy actually eats a bag of potato chips that's out there. So again, depending on what you're using, if you're in a large a work environment that's there. I didn't have the breakout room set up, but I think everyone that's been on a Zoom kind of knows how it works on there. So Microsoft had added in breakout rooms. So I know lots of times, we did a lot of work with the Bar Association across multi-counties. And, one of the bigger reasons they stuck with Zooms is having breakout rooms for mediations. Teams has that's in there. So I will say that almost every day there's something new that I read about in Teams that are there. One of the things we were talking about is mental health. Microsoft developed an app called Breakthrough, which you basically say, you know what, every 2 hours, breakthrough, play me some of that, wind chimes music, or remind me to get up. All these things are just little fun things that are kind of in Teams that are out there. I mean, it's the platform for everything. But I definitely want to emphasize that Andres showed some great features when it deals with setting up the channels or using SharePoint. I will say that in most organizations, we do block, external sharing. You have to ask for that turned on. So for those of you that might be attorneys and thinking about, oh my God, now I can share everything, you might not be able to. We put those in place there. And a lot of this looks very overwhelming, but it's crawl, walk, learn. And I say learn because you really got to go through a lot of these things. We use this internally. It runs our business. Yes, we're an IT company, but we can use anything that's out there. And it really changed a lot, how we interact with employees and external people.
Absolutely. So many different functions. I mean, we just drop of the bucket here today, right? We're just going over some of the basic features. There's so much more we could talk about, but really ultimately we want to show you what's possible, what you can do, and how you can really leverage this to its fullest extent. So not sure if you wanted to show the breakout rooms or not, Michael, or just maybe to show people how you can create them, and then we can go ahead and give people a little bit of time back here in their day.
Sure. Let's see if we have any questions while I get that, get that set up. If anybody wants to turn on their mic or you have any questions of things, definitely feel free to ask, even the littlest things that are there. How confidential is this is one of the questions. So I'll guess to be clear. So Microsoft Teams, I will say, is more secure in a way than Zoom. I'll just tell you my rationale on this. I don't shy away from using it, as everything is encrypted inside the Microsoft platform. And then depending on who you are in the organization, every chat is discoverable. So every chat, every document, every meeting is discoverable. So from a business standpoint, that's great. If you ever needed to go back and look at what you said or what you did, it's there. So from an outside perspective, we don't ask for a meeting password because Microsoft encrypts it end to end. You know, Zoom's meant to be run a little differently, and I only compare it to. I don't have any concerns about Zoom being, you know, a security breach or anything in that. So I do view both of these secure from the down part. The reason that we look at Teams and Zoom in two different lights is Zoom is meant to be individual, right? Even if I have a corporate setup, people individually create, you know, their logins, or most people have, you know, the free version on that side of it. When you use Teams, Microsoft turns on all those security features inside, and I will tell you that your Teams is secure because I know we've set it up, so I can tell you that. I see that Steve asks how to set up appointments with some of your teams using a link and picking open times. So, you know, Andres, you want to grab that?
Yeah, so how to set up appointments with some of your team using a link and picking open time. So Steve, there's a function inside of, you know, every time you set a meeting called the scheduling assistant. So let's say, for example, I was kind of showing you that as you went ahead and you opened up a new meeting invitation, there's a scheduling assistant portion. I can go ahead and show you this. Only thing is I can't really show you actual calendars, right? Because this is a demo environment. However, I can show you if I just schedule a meeting what it looks like. So go ahead and schedule this time. Let's say I'll add a Joe, Megan, and who's another user in here? I think I have Pradeep is another user. Okay, so I can go ahead and click on this scheduling assistant. And so what you'll notice is that Paul, Joe, and Megan actually have a calendar enabled. Pradeep does not. That's because he doesn't have anything scheduled on his actual calendar. But in this case, because we have a couple scheduled here, what you can see is that Paul, Joe, and Megan are busy between 8:30 and 9. They're busy between 10 and 10:30, but they have availability inside of these other windows. So you can go ahead and select what window of time makes the most sense. Let's say I go with that. Then I go back to the details. I can go ahead and set the meeting now for the time that I just selected. In terms of actually scheduling it with a link, what you can now do is when you schedule this, let's go ahead and I can send this. When I go ahead and send this meeting with Paul here, I can go ahead and open this up. You'll notice that every time I send a meeting, each meeting is going to come with its own meeting link. And so then I can go ahead and select and copy that link. I can send it into an email. I can send it into a chat window, however you want to use it. In this case, I'll just use the marketing team again. And now as I go ahead and I send it, they're going to be able to click on this join button directly from that link. They'll be able to join both from the app as well as through the web.
And you can now do that from the Outlook mobile app too. So if you're an iOS or an Android user, you know, you can automatically include the Teams info in there. You know, I always say it on a mobile device because sometimes you're thinking about it later on and you want to be able to go out and, you know, do it after hours on some of those things. And then if you're looking to schedule with people outside of your office, there are other utilities like I use Find Time, where I go out there and I send a poll out, or you can use Doodle, you know, where you, instead of sending 50 messages back and forth for the same 7 people, you know, you could actually send a poll out and say, hey, which time works? So Find Time is one of them. And another one that I played with was Doodle that are there. So, you know, those are the good things. So, you know, I guess I'm going to see if anybody has any other questions. I do say confer with your IT team first before you endeavor on some of these things that are out there. Some things do cause issues later on, especially on the sharing piece there. You know, don't be overwhelmed. We'll be sending out some documents to everybody, including this recording. I will send out some cheat sheets, you know, and Microsoft has a lot of great little videos that are online. And I even admit that there are a lot of Microsoft experts up on YouTube that are out there, you know, so when something new comes out, there's always a video, you know, there's no shame in going out there and learning. If you feel this was value and you need further detailed training, you know, talk to IT, you know, we do more in-depth training. We also have some online training that could be, you know, a paid service where people can get these little snippets. You know, it is a really cool application. And the last thing I always say is if any of you were an NBA fan, you know, during the peak of the pandemic in the summer, when you watched the NBA bubble out of Orlando and you saw the screens up there, that was Microsoft Together mode in Teams. So NFL draft was done using Teams. They did some of the stuff for the Grammys that are out there. So kind of cool, guys. So any other questions before we call it I guess, morning for Andres, and then we go to lunch. All right, guys, so I will call this a wrap, and I appreciate all of you hanging in there, and any other questions, follow up, and look for our follow-up email up. We see, I see one more chat possibly coming in.
Appreciate it, Steve. Happy to help.
Bad part about the bubble, you know, on there lots of times, because it shows, I guess they're trying to simulate, I guess I'm not an Apple user, but on the iMessage, you know, it shows you that people are typing that are in there. I'm going to stop the recording before I forget, and we'll go through and go out.